I want you to imagine for a moment. Picture yourself on your deathbed. And within this hypothetical context, imagine you are isolated, which means you are not surrounded by loved ones. I want you to picture yourself alone with your thoughts in the space of complete isolation. Don't focus too hard on the physical details. Don't focus on where you would be, but rather the actual feeling of being alone as best as you can. Now consider yourself looking back at the life you lived so far, or rather, even the feeling of the life you intend to live in the coming years. What are some things that come to your mind immediately? I want you to rather focus on the things you wish you did or didn't do. Focus on the what ifs. The what if I had went this way instead of that way? What if I had stayed put and didn't go at all? What if I would have given more? Or what if I would have gave less? What if I was more optimistic? What if I was less gullible? What if I had taken better care of myself? What if I had been less focused on taking care of myself and cared a bit more selflessly about others? What if I had taken more risks? What if I would have been a bit more careful? What if I would have studied a bit harder? Or what if I would have dropped out of school at that one point and experienced more living in my life? What if I had taken things a bit more serious? What if I had taken things a little less serious? What if I had thought about these things sooner? What if I didn't? Now, imagine you have a week until this moment arrives, and not just a matter of minutes. What might then you be thinking? If we're truly being honest, I don't think that really changes much as far as having this same pull and radical sense of urgency. What about a month? It is more time, but again, I'd like to assume that things would be the same as far as having this radical sense of urgency. What about a year? If we're being honest, again, I'd like to assume you would be a completely different person, and you would have a completely different approach to life than you do now. Now, picture 80 years. And I know when I say that, it's kind of silly, because it's like, now this just sounds like a normal lifetime. But what has actually changed about the momentum of the situation? The answer is our time. Death has now been seen as a literally, physically distant, as well as a mentally distant thing. Death is not so near. Death is no longer at the door. We have time now. Death is not impending. This spatial proximity to death allows us to move on from the thoughts. We would say, we have a life to live and rent to pay, and things in front of me that command my current attention. The thought of death is put on the shelf. It becomes, I will get to that thought later. This is a thought only for melancholics. The thought becomes a put to the sideism until the thought must arrive. My concern for most is that this thought is only entertained in the very rare, uncomfortable occurrences that one has in their life, or until the thought must be entertained. What happens if we wait until the thought is now necessary, unavoidable, and inevitable? Ordinary people seem not to realize that those who really apply themselves in the right way to philosophy are directly and of their own accord preparing themselves for dying and death. Death has been understood as a series of changes reflecting and showing more about humanity's evolved understanding of it than anything else. Each historical context examines the ways in which death has been perceived, whether ritual and apocryphal, whether ironic, whether transient, showing the fleeting nature of life, the temporality of beauty, wealth, and status, whether romantic, allegorical, mystical, and the sublime, whether abstract, warped, or straight to the point. I believe when much of the modern world entertains this thought, this of existentialism and coming face to face with death, it kind of turns into either this morbid, cold, nihilistic feeling of there is no meaning. If I have to create my meaning, there is nothing outside of me creating my meaning, then it goes out the window for some people. It just immediately goes into, why should I even try? And there's no reason to. It becomes absurd to a lot of people. Or it becomes this washed down sense of fulfillment. It becomes this cliche YOLO mentality of, you only live once, so take all these arbitrary trips around the world and, build your stature and do some irrational decision making. And while I can see value in the spontaneity of those things, if they're not grounded in anything real or anything consciously, like they're not grounded with something deeper, it just becomes you're kind of being tossed by the wind because of this feeling of, oh, there's no meaning. It's still to me in the same sense, like kind of fear. It's like I need to absorb as much as I can because this is the only time I have. Within the context of becoming face to face with death, becoming face to face with your mortality, I want it to be seen as this practice of unveiling things you wouldn't have normally seen about yourself if you had not entertained the thoughts. Because to me, truly, that's what the power of the exercise does to me, is it unveils things. It makes me want to do things a little bit differently every day. Like, for instance, my 2 things I do every day, or I attempt to do. I live with intentionality in hopes that I can be consistent, so they kind of go hand in hand. You want to be intentional. You intend to do things. And even if those things don't get fulfilled, I still find value in the intention of waking up and being consciously deliberate, because more often than not, you are actually, if you're being truly authentic in the sense of intending to do these things, you will get them done. And there will be days that you don't. It's not a one solution solves everything in your life type scenario. No, it's an everyday principle. It's a practice. It's something to incorporate, to allow yourself to see change in your life more fruitfully, more authentically, more connected to something that you would actually do. Is there going to be some random trip taking and spontaneous, irrational decision making? Yes. I tend to have these random impulses and moments where I do just take these leaps and risks. I feel like even if they seem like it's something out of the ordinary for me, it's still connected to this idea of maybe at this point in my life, in this context of my life, I do need to be taking more risk. This matters right now. This makes sense. And I'm kind of following this thread, this story that I create for my own life. And that's much richer and deeper than being like, I need to travel and see the world because that's what people do, right? When they realize that there's only one life, like we need to go. And it's like, no, you don't. If that's not something you enjoy doing, you don't have to do it. That is my 2 cents on that idea of how people view this modern thought of existentialism. The practice of preparing for death does not grant you the will or strength to live a more deliberate life in every instant. We are human. We fall short even in periods of the utmost consistency. This should not discourage you. You cannot escape human emotions and fragility always. You shouldn't. This way of coming near to death should be a useful tool. Fragility is a beautiful thing at times. This tool should not be seen as a solve your entire life scenario, like I said earlier, but to support the next instance of fear, anger, arrogance, and even cynicism. into moments of conscious deliberation, of a type of attempt to consider what you don't want to look back upon, of who you don't want to be, where you don't want to be, and why you don't want to be it. Memento mori. Remember that you must die.